Hello and welcome back to IllumiNation, the Disney Lorcana podcast. My name's Max.
And I'm Sam.
And we are here with episode 48. Thank you all for listening in. We appreciate you being here. Going over Whispers in the Well, now that we have all of the spoilers available to us. We've been grinding away doing some testing. We've been ingesting a bunch of other people's content, trying to make sense of the whispers coming from the well. Before we get started, really big announcement coming out from this episode. We have expanded the breadth of IllumiNation, the Disney Lorcana podcast, to IllumiNation, the Disney Lorcana team. Sam, how many people are on IllumiNation, the Disney Lorcana team?
We went from 5 to now we have 19.
19? That's almost 20.
Almost.
So we have grown in size. You will see us if you are Northeast specific. You'll hopefully see us at the DLCs. If we can get in, you will see us out and about playing Disney Lorcana. Really simple. The mission statement is pretty straightforward. Self-growth and betterment, trying to be better players, trying to be better people, trying to be better for the community at large. So I just wanted to take some time to shout out all of the new members. 14 new additions to the IllumiNation, the Disney Lorcana team. Keep an eye out for us at events. Say hi, come over. If you listen to the podcast, great. If not, we'll tell you about it if we see you. Don't worry. We love to have people listen in, and we suck at social media, so we'd rather just talk to you in person. But hopefully with 14 new people, the word will spread better, and maybe one of them is good at social media, I hope. We'll see. If you're listening to this, you're on the team, and you like social media, send me a message. So let's get into the episode proper now that we're rolling off good news. Let's get into more good news. We're looking at cards. Now, there's a couple of things we've talked about in the past when it comes to looking at cards. You can look at the card in a vacuum, singularly by itself. That is certainly a way to evaluate, right? Is this card good? Is this card bad? We've done that for a long time. If you're familiar with early IllumiNation, we were doing whole entire set reviews. Let me tell you about something that's daunting. Doing 204 cards. And of course, because this is a game that supports limited play, so sealed, draft, opening the product and playing with it, pack rush, things like that, you have to review a bunch of cards and go, well, this is clearly not a good constructed card. It's here for the limited experience. And that got old pretty quickly. We moved into breaking the cards down that interested us. And the way we do that is a couple of different ways. The first is obviously single card evaluation. So you can see a card and go, holy cow, this card seems very, very powerful. Then from there, you got to follow it up. Does it have a home? Do you have to build a home for it? Or does it slot nicely into an existing prefabricated home? That's the next step. Then from there, testing it. Is it as good as I thought it was? Because theory crafting's great. And you will hear a lot of people theory crafting. But does the theory crafting prove out is the big question. So let's start diving into questions. These are cards that we feel look powerful, look like they have a home, but we haven't tested them exclusively, or they've been good or bad in certain areas. So that's where we want to start off things, listing out some cards. First and foremost, we have one of the iconic cards from this set. This is Ariel.
So it's Ariel, Ethereal Voice. She is one of our boost cards. So she has boost 1. And once during your turn, whenever you play a song, if there's a card under this character, you may draw a card.
She slots what would be seemingly seamlessly into an Amber Steel Songs style deck. That being said, there are a few reservations I have about this card. The cost plus the boost is 5. So we're either playing Ariel, boosting her right away so we can sing a song with an already existing character on the board in order to immediately generate value, or we're playing Ariel on 4, boosting on 5, which is then going to leave us with 4 extra ink, and then we're trying to do something from there. It's a little bit of a rough spot in the where do we want to sing stuff curve when you think about the cost and how it all works together. So I'm a little hesitant on this card, but when it says draw a card, it's hard to ignore a card that lets you get extra value for game actions you already want to take, like playing songs in your deck. I'm eyeballing it. I could definitely see it being a legitimate card, but for now, I haven't had my hands on it enough to give you good advice one way or another, but it does have promise. So put it in the questionable category. Next question mark on the list is a legendary card. This one is Rapunzel. Sam, you want to tell us briefly about this one?
Yeah, she's a 1/2 quest for 1 for 2 inkable. She has support, and whenever one of your characters is chosen for support until the start of your next turn, the next time they would be dealt damage, they take no damage instead.
Yeah, so potentially very powerful in a support-based deck. We've seen a lot of this over the span of the game, hanging in the shadows, usually relegated to the Amber Sapphire color combination. We've seen World's Greatest Criminal Mind that works very well with support. We've seen cards like the new Fabled Minnie Mouse coming out that works really well with support. We've seen a previous Minnie Mouse that was a Musketeer that worked really well with support to help get rid of opposing units. And then obviously you have the advantage of making your characters extra statted to be able to remove troublesome units. So there's a lot to like about the Rapunzel at a very low cost, but this feels like a deck that needs to be built from the ground up. It doesn't slot neatly into an existing deck. So in terms of day one meta, I don't think we'll see a lot of Rapunzel. Over the weeks to come within the well, I think we will probably start to hear her name echoing about a little bit more. So the next one is one that probably in my personal most excited to test with cards. I can tell you a little bit more about this one than the average card. From this point, Sam, what is this card?
It's Simba, King in the Making. He's a 5/5, quests for 3 for 7 inkable, and he has boost 3. Whenever you put a card under this character, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, you may play that character for free and they enter play exerted. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck.
Yes, so this harkens back to Simba's father, Mufasa, from Rise of the Floodborn, being able to randomly flip a card over, which is really cool. I like the Mufasa decks of days past, so I was really excited to try a Simba out, especially in a ramp style deck, so I can get the Simba down very quickly and ahead of schedule and start activating it. My thought was, even if I went low on cards in hand, if I have Simba out, I'm going to draw a card every turn I can play, and then I can certainly afford to pay measly 3 ink to put another potentially very large and threatening character into play. So I'm playing 2 cards every turn while Simba's out, and my opponents generally will only have access to 1 card from their deck every turn. So I've been testing it. It has some clunk for sure. Is it the best card at this cost? No. Is it good with other cards at this cost? Yes. So I think it's pretty darn good, or at least has some potential, but I think it really needs a good home, and maybe it needs future sets to really show how good it really is. So we'll see. But speaking of Amber Sapphire, we have a Sapphire card next. Sam, what's this one?
This one is Daisy Duck, Paranormal Investigator. She's a 4/6, quest for 2 for 6 inkable. She has shift 4. She has support, and while this character is exerted, cards enter opponent's inkwell exerted.
This was a card that also in my top, like this plus Simba, were the reasons I started building Amber Sapphire for immediate testing, because we have never had a card that does this to the opponent. So my thought was this: I'm on the play. I play Daisy Duck Donald's Date on 1. On my second turn, I play some kind of a card that gives me an extra ink, so either Tipo or Sail. The following turn is going to be turn 3. I went first, so it's my turn 3. My opponent has 2 ink. I'm going to be able to play my ink for turn and then shift this Daisy Duck into a 4/6 on my third turn. Enormous stats. Has support, so if we have a Tipo out, Tipo can punch just about anything. And on top of that, while she's exerted, she is preventing my opponent from being able to play a 3-cost card on curve, which is extremely powerful. I still think that line has promise, but I just don't know if it's A, effective enough, and B, is worth doing and having to abandon that strategy sometimes on the draw. So more to come, but I can tell you when it works, it looks nasty. So the next one we have is our first Amethyst card. This one is a little snowman.
Yeah, it's Olaf Helping Hand. He's a 2/1 for 1 inkable, quest for 1, and when this character leaves play, you may return chosen character of yours to your hand.
Right, so this one is really interesting in terms of generating a value with the bounce or a tempo advantage by bouncing your opponent's characters back to their hands. So a really interesting card, not a high cost on that one, so definitely worth experimenting. It's merely the timing that's tricky with that particular card. The next one is also an Amethyst card, but it's an item.
Yeah, it's Junior Woodchuck Guidebook. It's a 2-cost inkable item. Exert it, pay 1, and banish this item to draw 2 cards.
Very simple, but very effective. It's a card that can draw us cards. It's a card that is recurable with something like a Tamatoa. There are some implications, but is it going to be enough within the meta, that's the reason why this one's a big question mark. I think this card on its own is extremely powerful. I think in a vacuum, it's probably one of the most powerful cards, just full stop, in the set. I think it's quite awesome. We will see if it ends up finding a home. That's really the question mark for this card. It's not a question of its power. I think that's inarguable, but does it have a home is the next question on the docket. So we'll see. So let's hear about one of our Frozen characters that hasn't gotten a lot of love in a minute.
It's Kristoff, Mining the Ruins. He's a 2/3, quest for 2 for 3 inkable with boost 1. And whenever this character quests, if there's a card under him, put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exerted.
Yeah, this card has some potential. It can certainly get you some resources very quickly without going too crazy on your hand. It also plays very well with Pleakley because of having boost. So I know some people were excited about putting this Kristoff into the inkwell after it's already gotten you some additional ink. So a pretty neat card. It eats up a valuable spot on the curve, so it really depends how forgiving the meta is to kind of, quote, take that 3/4 turn off to get to very fast ink. But we'll see. We'll see. Sam, this last one on the questionable cards is a song.
Yeah, we have an Emerald song. It's Trust in Me. It's 6 uninkable, and you choose one. Either each opposing character gets -1 lore until the start of your next turn, or each opponent chooses and discards 2 cards.
This card has a lot going for it. It's a modal card, so you can choose which mode you want to use. It can stop your opponent from winning the game if they think they have the math figured out that they can maybe win in 2 turns. This completely throws a monkey wrench in there and lets you get back in the game at a pretty reasonably low cost, either paying the 6 or singing it, which is nice. It can also, at a pivotal point in a more controlling mirror match, be able to take the opponent off of 2 resources, which could set them back quite a long way if they were planning on setting something up really good for the following turn, especially in Emerald mirrors where we're setting up usually multiple cards to try to posture our way into getting ahead on board. Those are the question mark cards for the set. Definitely some exciting stuff, things that I'm very excited to play more with and see how they do. So we're going to move into the next one. We're not going to go through all of these just because the question mark ones I think are the more out there on the fringes. You might not know these ones. These other underrated or conditional cards you're going to see probably or have heard about in your time looking over lists or devouring content. The first one is the new 2-drop Scrooge McDuck in Emerald. This card is quite the quester, and I think one thing that's really neat about it is that it doesn't trigger effects like Calhoun, because when it's challenged, it returns to your hand. And I think that's pretty darn neat. Worth noting that the draw a card, discard a card on this card is required. It is not an option, is worth noting there. So I'm excited to see if this finds a home. Next up is the Cheshire Cat. This is a card that is one of our boost cards, a Whisper. It moves damage around. I thought this card was just going to be like, fine. It's very on board and obvious, kind of a trick. But the way the meta seems to be shaking out early in our testing, it has an opportunity often to be either good as a pseudo bell / panic, right? That was the one that moved damage counters.
Yes.
It works in that capacity. It also works really well in the late game to sit there and go, okay, now that there's a bunch of damage counters sitting around the board, every turn I'm going to be able to manipulate this and start to really take over a stalled board state. So quite an impressive card on that front. Flynn Rider, another Whisper here, and you'll hear a lot of these that are either underrated or conditional need a home, and they're new cards, so we don't know where the home is yet for a lot of these cards. I think a lot of people are letting Cheshire Cat fly under the radar a little bit too far. Flynn Rider is more of a, it needs a home, but it looks like it could certainly enjoy a little stay in an aggro deck, being able to bulk itself up and quest for more as part of its boost. We also have Baloo, who lets each player discard a card or each player draw a card when he comes in. He has Shift, costs 5, he's inkable, does a lot of heavy lifting on a point in the curve where a discard effect could be very effective, especially if you can leverage it to where you're running lower on resources and your opponent's staying in a resource or 2 ahead in hand. You can change and flip the script there, which is really nice. This next one I think is on a lot of people's radar, but it really depends on how strong this ends up proving out. This is Malicious, Mean, and Scary, which is a song that puts a damage counter on all opposing characters. Whether they have resist or not, it puts one there, which is the Emerald thing it does with damage counters. So if this combo with Prince Philip proves to be as strong as early testing would suggest it is, then this is going to be quite the card. But if that doesn't end up proving out, or that combo ends up being a little bit too difficult to pull off and see results, I think we'll see this card decline in popularity quite a bit. Next up is Bronx, and comboing that with Next Stop Olympus. These are both Ruby cards, and the reason they're conditional is because Ruby is still conditional. We don't know if Ruby is playable yet.
Yeah.
It didn't really get much. It got Dragonfire in terms of actual banishing power that it can use, which is nice. Dragonfire and Maui Shark is a combo. We've seen that synergy work for many sets previously, so not denying that. But if we can get a list together that Ruby works for, I do think that these two cards will be in that list most likely. But that remains to be seen. Card that I think is flying under a lot of people's radar, and flying is a pun here because this is a bird, is Scuttle. Scuttle doesn't look very flashy. It's a 5/5 for 5 inkable that quests for 2, but it has ward. So this card is pretty awesome if you're not immediately ramping to 6, or even if you are, you can ramp and still pay for boost costs, things like that. The turn you play Scuttle's card is just statted super well, it quests hard, and it is basically unchoosable in any capacity, so it's pretty sticky. It's either going to smash something, or it's going to go, hey, I'm going to be over here questing, so if you want to sacrifice 1 or 2 units to stop me, I'll allow it. Scuttle's been very good in our early testing in the Sapphire decks. I've been liking it a lot. Another 5-drop inkable card is the Champion of Sapphire. That's Daisy Duck, giving a Cogsworth-style impression by giving your Sapphire characters resist 1 can be very annoying for math. And when they quest, you get to look at the top card of your deck and either keep it there or put it on the bottom. So if you need to find key things, you get a little bit of deck manipulation by way of questing. The final card is a steel card, David Xanathos from Gargoyles. It's a really cool card in that it lets you leverage going second by discarding a card when it comes into play and dealing 2 damage to a chosen character, which I think is neat. So if you want to take your opponent off curve with this card, you can, and you're taking advantage of the fact that you have an extra card when you're on the draw. So it just helps you cement staying ahead if you need it. So it's a nice catch-up card. Doesn't have the most high impact right now, especially with the size of characters, but I think it's a pretty cool card. So let's get into a little bit more of a discussion point at this moment in the episode. I think that outside of reading, Sam hasn't contributed much, but now we can get into some cards that we've tested or we want to kind of caution people against getting too crazy about. The first one is probably going to be the most controversial card that we'll talk about based on the category we put it in. And that card is Spooky Sight. Sam, what the heck is this card?
Spooky Sight is a 6-cost uninkable action in Sapphire, and it is put all characters with cost 3 or less into their player's inkwell face down and exert.
You get to have an actual board wipe in Sapphire, which is important because the aggro decks, the decks that go wide, tend to be the bane of Sapphire's existence. And being able to answer those cards is strong. And I think that it sounds insanely powerful when you hear it. And there are definitely times we have played this card and it is, in fact, insanely powerful. However, if you're playing against a color combination with a lot of card advantage, you have now loaded up their board with ink. And now they are going to be able to dump 3 or 4 cards into play, and you're going to have to now answer those immediately. Mm-hmm. There were definitely times in testing where I would play a spooky and Sam would go, okay, cool, I'm going to refill the board, and I'm going to be able, in the middle of that, to answer your threat that was on the board. All off the back of me Spooky Sight. And Spooky Sight in that time, I think, was 5 of your characters going into your inkwell. And you were just immediately able to fire back and take back the board advantage without skipping a beat. Mm-hmm. I think that my caution on this one is this card is powerful, it is good, and you will probably be playing it in your Sapphire decks, but just remember what you're doing and think about the timing. It's not just ramp 2, ramp 4, play Spooky Sight every time. You have to think about deploying this card in a thoughtful manner.
Yeah, I think it's deck dependent. You definitely need the card around to stop the aggressive decks, but I do think you might want to think about it before you play it against a deck that's just going to capitalize on that extra ink.
Right, wait another turn or two. How critical is it that you need that right now? Should I just deal with maybe one piece of precision removal to keep them slower so that they feel they need to add to the board even more? Maybe I put a big character down to threaten something like that Scuttle, to threaten a character, and they go, okay, well, if they're going to play that and I have 3 characters, they now have 2, I'm going to put 2 more characters into play or 3 more characters into play and empty my hand to really go wide, because if I do the math right, that'll let me end this game in 3 turns or whatever the way it proves out. So don't be afraid to be patient and be very methodical when you're thinking about your spooky site, because it is a card I think a lot of people are just equating to unconditional board wipe. It's not quite that. So think carefully about it. The next card up is the Horseman Strikes. So this is a card I would caution people on. I think a lot of people are going, oh, Amber can't answer evasive cards. I'm going to simply put this card in my deck. Caution you on this, because Amber's identity, Amber's play pattern is what, Sam? What does Amber love to do?
Put down characters on the board and quest.
Play to the board. Exactly correct. Taking 3 ink during pivotal points of the game and just going, well, I get a card back and I'll take care of your card. That's not always great, especially if you're dealing with something like Genie. They went up a card and they have a 2/4 on the board. You're going to stay card neutral and not add anything into the game. You're not putting anything on the board. You're staying card neutral, but you're just simply going, okay, you can't do that. And now they get to untap and start doing more things, and you're behind on the board because they're adding and you're just hoping to stay at parity. This card, I think, could see some play, but I think a lot of people are using it as a crutch, and this card is not very good in the Amber color. I wish this card were almost any other color. I think it would see more play, but I think that a lot of people are going to play with this card and they're not going to be too happy with the results. You can't sing with it, so you don't have your ink free to continue to add to the board the way Amber likes to. So I think you're going to find a better answer in songs than you're going to find in this particular card. Final card I want to talk about on this one is a steel item.
Sword of Hercules. 2 cost, inkable steel item. The first ability is when you play this character, banish chosen opposing deity character. And then the second ability is during your turn, whenever one of your characters banishes another character in a challenge, gain 1 lore.
Yeah, this card's interesting in that it is removal. I see a lot of people talking about all of the things and pulling up sorted lists to find all of the deity characters to see how many are playable and how many get targeted by the Hercules sword. And I caution you on this, that don't get overexcited because your removal removes things. That's the point of removal. Like this card, it's more you're playing it, I think, if you're interested in the second part and going, hey, if they played a 7-drop Hades and I happen to play this and I take it out, terrific. Otherwise, I think a lot of people are looking at this and going, ooh, I can put this card, I put 2 of it in my deck, and then they're going to play Hades. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shoot it. And then I'm going to be able to start challenging, and it'll do the thing, but it's not going to be that good most of the time. It is inkable, so you have a lot of flexibility within the card. So I do think it is a playable card, but I do not think that this card is something that I would put 1 or 2 of in every steel deck in the hopes that it does something effective. Could be wrong, but I suspect that I'm probably not. Challenging and taking over the board and being able to quest is a way to get ahead on its own. You don't need more extra unless you're playing something that's like specifically interested in challenging heavily, something like a red steel deck, or you'll know the configuration when you have it. But we haven't seen that deck pay off yet. I don't think a very, very minuscule possible upside is going to help make a card like this one spectacularly playable. That's the cautionary tales. But let's get into what we think are the best cards in the set. I'm not going to run through all these. I would imagine that you probably know these cards when we call them out. The first one is an Amethyst legendary card. It's not going to be the only Amethyst legendary card in our top 8. This one's Demona. She is very, very powerful. She lends herself to an extremely powerful play pattern that I think is going to end up making something like Amethyst Steel the premier deck that's easily able to answer more aggressive and leanly statted character decks that we've seen in the past. So I think that this card has proven we've been playing this kind of curve to Demona style purple steel, and it is very good at answering opposing character decks. So I think she is quite good. If the meta continues to shift in the way people suspect and even more controlling bigger decks become more important, we'll probably see a dwindling of Demona because she can be very bad against controlling decks, but I think you're going to be seeing her a lot very early, and I think through the life of this meta, she will end up being a card that is seen more often than not. Next up, you can't have Demona, you can't talk about Gargoyles without talking about Keith David's Goliath. This is the Steel legendary Goliath. This card is really nice at putting cards back into the hand of decks that tend to run low through things like card disadvantage because we're ramping, right? We're using T-Pos, we're using Cinderellas, we're using things that aren't drawing us cards, we're not gaining card advantage, we're playing to the board by way of resourcing quickly. The Goliath card helps us draw back into it. Also is great when pairing Steel with colors that don't draw cards very effectively or more card filtering based like Emerald. It's really nice paired with those. I haven't tested it in Ruby Steel, but I assume it would be just as playable there as it has been. Remember, this card does give cards to your opponent, so you have to think about this card and play carefully. On the other side of the coin, unlike Demona though, this Goliath, when it gets played, also makes your opponent discard cards, which can be gnarly. We've had opponents discarding 2, 3, 4 cards on a Goliath play, so it can be very strong. Next up, we have Webby. She is a 4-cost card. She shifts, and she has Ward, and she quests for 2. Pretty awesome. She can also ramp you if your opponent has more ink out than you. So she's just doing all these really cool little things that Emerald wants to be doing. She sings You're Welcome. She sings any of the Steel pairings, Strength or Thunderbolt. She gets to do a lot of really nice things while maintaining that ward, and at a 2/4/2 stat line, if she comes down shifted on 2, she can just start questing away. I've been really impressed with the play patterns from Webby, and I'm hoping she finds a home. I don't know if she's going to be a staple in the Emerald Sapphire decks. I don't know if there's enough ramp. I don't know if she's good enough to take the place of some of that ramp. Unsure, but I think she is, so far from my testing, very strong, and I think she's going to be a staple in the Emerald color. Amber, I think this is the one like big gift that Amber got this set. It's a super rare. It's Mowgli. Mowgli is kind of like Bare Necessities, except your opponent chooses the card they discard. However, they are revealing your hand, so you're getting the power of information. And if they only have one thing to choose that fits in the category of a non-character card, they have to discard it. This card can do some really nasty things, and it can really either slow your opponent down if you're on the play in Amber and you steal their soul ramp card like Assail the Azurite Sea, they might just lose on the spot. If you're playing this to try to stop them from singing and get their song out of their hand, it's very likely that even with the addition of Thunderbolt, they still likely only have one song in their hand. Even if they have 2, you've stopped the one that's going to happen a little later in the game. So I think Mowgli is going to prove to be pretty awesome if there's an effective Amber deck for sure. Steel getting some gifts here. This is a common. It's a 3/3 for 2 inkable that quests for 1. With no abilities whatsoever. That card's Black Heron. That card is awesome. The thing it unlocks that's so good is it finally lets the Steel strategies alter their hands a little bit more aggressively, because you're not playing all of these uninkable cards like you would play Calhoun normally in this spot. A lot of decks starting to cut down on Calhoun copies to play the more inkable, flexible version with Black Heron and go, you know what? I have less non-games now because I have this card. And the 3 willpower stat line is no joke either. It can really help keep you ahead. It's inkable, it's flexible, it can quest and go bring it on, and you can have a Calhoun sitting there ready to smack something if it lives. This paired with a Calhoun can take down a Hades, the Sapphire 7-drop Hades, so I mean this card is no joke. Next up, we have the blue card here that everybody's talking about. It's the Sapphire Cinderella legendary. This card is pretty awesome. The thing that makes her so strong is that she triggers herself. It doesn't have to be another princess, it's whenever a princess, which she happens to be, comes in, you get to trigger her effect. That's put a card from your hand into your inkwell face down, and then you get to draw a card to replace it. So similar to Tipo, but it gives you a card. So it's very strong. It's a 4 cost, so it can sing a lot of these songs. She does a really nice job of helping you filter your hand of things. If you've ever drawn on your spooky site, she can lend you a hand. She's proven to be pretty good, but I will caution you, not every deck that plays Sapphire necessarily wants to aggressively run out Cinderella. I've had a couple Sapphire decks that she just didn't quite fit the bill well enough. I really needed to be precious with my cards, and I couldn't just filter willy-nilly. When she felt good, she felt good. But there were times where I was like, I guess I'm just not doing anything, and this is the only thing that costs 4 in my hand, so I'm going to pass the turn. Or use her, and now I've drawn a worse card. Something like that. So her play patterns aren't all 100% upside, though she is extremely powerful, even paired with no other princesses in the deck at all. Next up is the Amethyst Legendary we didn't talk about at the beginning. We're talking about it here towards the end. This is Hades. This card costs 5 and it's the other iconic from the set. When it comes into play, it forces an opponent to either banish the character of your choice or allow you to draw 2 cards. This card's very strong. If you're ahead on board, it lets you stay ahead on board and gives you card advantage or forces the opponent to fall behind in a really bad way. Paired with Steel, this card feels ridiculous because you get to draw 2 cards and one of those cards can sometimes be a song. Your other character gets to sing it and blow up that character anyway, and you've gone up a card. Very punishing card. Sam, you like this card a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it would be reading it initially just because the opponent gets the choice, and historically, you don't want to give your opponent the choice. But I feel like every time I've played this card, I don't care which option they choose, honestly.
Yeah, when you play this card, most of the time you're going to go, I am happy with either of these because both are so backbreaking for the opponent.
And playing against this card, it has really made me think, like, I don't know which one to choose. I think this card is way stronger than I originally thought it would be, and I like it a lot.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are some cards in other games I've played with that have a similar you choose. 95% of them, 99% of them may be even terrible. But you get that small little percentage where it's like, you know what? Both sides of this coin, equally bad for your opponent at times. I think this Hades is one of those occasions. And the last card we're talking about is another Steel, believe it or not. This one is a gargoyle. It is Lexington. I think this card, and the reason we're talking about it last, this is without a doubt, at least early, this is the most meta-defining card in the set. Yeah. No joke. A 4/4, 4/3 inkable that on your turn can challenge evasive characters via the alert keyword. That's all there is going on here. There's no fanciness. This card is insane.
This card I do think goes in every Steel deck.
This card is, it's so strong. Both numbers are so very important. We're seeing what they call the vanilla curve change in this set, where cards with little to no ability are getting a bump in stats, and we're starting to see that. We saw it with Black Heron. We're seeing it with Lexington. We've seen it in several cases where it's like, oh my goodness, the Scuttle even with just the ward at a 5/5/2 stat line for 5. Very good cards that can do a lot of damage despite the fact there's not much going on in terms of complexity with the card. This isn't as complex as something like the Hades is or the Demona is. It's a card that's very simple, very straightforward, but extraordinarily important and effective. So I do think that this card will come to define it. We're going to look at things that need to quest. Does it have 5? Because it needs to survive a Lexington hit. We're going to look at cards that when it quests, will it trade with a Lexington? How do we take out a Lexington? Like, this card is going to be everywhere. I think this card's very important, and it's a card you need to familiarize yourself with and think about heavily when you're deck building and how badly does this card hit you, because I think there's a certain ninth wonder of the world that's concerned about this card. I think Lexington is quite good coming down, even if you're on the draw before the Dumbo comes down, is critical and forcing your opponent to find an answer. Getting 4 units on the board is no joke, so being able to strength your opponent's Lexington is legitimately difficult at times. Playing 1-drop Captain Hook, do I get a free quest with it or will my opponent take it out? You have to think about these things now. All those little plays and the little micro decisions you're making in the game are extremely important, because something as simple as taking the genie, the Steel Genie, and adding 1 strength to it, essentially making its ability a little worse, is all they've done. And it's been totally meta-defining so far. Early meta possibilities, I think it's silly to say that we know what's going on. Early on, I would say my favorites are going to be the decks that already were a deck, right? All these cards had a home, and they made the home better because they're in it, right? Lexington, Black Heron, Demona, Hades. Those are Amethyst Steel cards. Sam, wasn't Amethyst Steel a deck in the Fabled meta?
Yeah, probably, I'd say second best, I guess.
Certainly in the top or 4 or 5 deck meta. It was one of them.
Yeah.
And put up results. Frank Karsten won a DLC with it. Deck is no joke. And it got an insane amount of big, helpful tools to make it better. I think that the Malicious, Mean, and Scary Prince Philip combo could make that Sapphire Emerald deck even better, being able to remove everything, not just small things, not having to play something like Heads Held High, which does nothing. It can actually play its do nothing card is, granted, a very expensive evasive character, but an evasive character that quests for 3 that can close out a game. I think that a lot of these decks are getting help. I think that some decks didn't get as much help. I think Blurple got some strange tools like the guidebook, which could that be good? Absolutely. Will it be good? I don't know. the Amethyst Steel deck can go so wide with such aggressive stats that it feels like Elsa Fifth Spirit struggles to keep up. Even with the help of supporters, she struggles to keep up with what's going on there. So we'll see how other decks factor into this and how other decks can win. But I'd say early on, I foresee Amethyst Steel, I foresee Emerald Sapphire, I foresee the rise of Sapphire Steel. I think that we're going to see a big boost of these kinds of decks that are going to be the same style of there's a more aggressive deck, a more controlling deck, and then one that preys on the other but falls victim to the one. And I think we're going to start to see that evolve. But the cool thing is there could be a really good aggro deck comes in and Mowgli-led charge and it's like, I don't care what you guys are doing. I'm going to slow you down just enough that I
Keep questing.